welcome back to Sports Show. You've got to be passionate about your sport if you're staying at a long time. Obviously, you get those ebbs and flows where you get success, but a lot of the time you don't. And so you know you're passionate about it if you've been in it for 36 years coaching basketball. Our next guest has done just that. Tracy York joins us. Tracy, how you going?
Hi, Phil. How you going?
I didn't want to date you with 36 years, but that's a long journey for someone to stay involved. And you've been at the top, you've been at the NBL, you've been through all the leagues and still currently coaching. What's the drive?
I just think passionate about basketball. It's a great game, you know, love sport, and now I do it full time. So, just love it, and obviously must do to have stayed in it that long, I guess.
You must. Now, you're a bit of a groundbreaker. Tracy was the first female to be an assistant coach in the NBL. Okay. And we're starting to see that more into the AFL now. A lot of talk about women breaking through. How difficult to break into the NBL as an assistant coach?
I think it is overall when you just look at the numbers of male coaches in the league. So Joey Wright, well, actually, firstly, I was with Marty Clark in 2010 and then Joey Wright for 5 years. So he just saw me coach one day and came up and approached me and said, was I interested in joining his team? So, yeah, I spent 5 years with him.
What did you think about that, Tracy, when he did approach you about doing that? What were your first thoughts?
It was pretty interesting because my younger daughter was with me at the time. I think she was only 14 and we were at juniors, and he asked me, you know, what I was doing work-wise and was I interested, and she was basically, you know, pulling at my jumper, and we got back into the car because I normally do my farewell tour of the basketball court after games, and my husband just sits in the car and waits for me. So we got out there and she was the one that was probably very excited and said he'd asked me, and so virtually a few weeks later I joined him on staff.
What about your husband?
Yeah, he's a basketball supporter, which is good.
Was he okay?
No, he was like, sounds good. Yeah. You know, he's pretty casual.
He's taking free tickets and box, that's what he is.
That's right.
So, Tracy, you've travelled around a bit, though. It hasn't been Australia. I mean, you're at Bendigo, you coached them just a year or two ago and had huge success with them, and then back here. So, hasn't always just been based here, and ahead of the Lightning as well. So, there's been a lot of travelling for you, and you mentioned young family, husband. Moving the family around, that's another difficult equation. Yeah,
it's interesting. So I actually had worked in Singapore for 3 years as their director of coaching. So that was back in 2005. So the whole family, we moved there. For Bendigo, the last 3 seasons I've been there and the family's been home. So that's probably been difficult with the COVID season. So I actually asked to be released from my last year of that just because I wanted to be home with the family. Yeah.
And do you find that, I guess, you being homesick and then potentially your players also being away from home for such extended periods of time, how do you support them, I guess, through that from a coaching perspective when you're probably feeling the same as well? Yeah,
it's this last WNBL season felt like 3 hub seasons in one, and you've kind of got to put that aside because you're obviously supporting your team, but then you spend all that time on your own at night and you're like, oh, I'm not really enjoying this. So you're making sure that they're fine, but then ultimately, this last couple of months I made the decision to come back to Adelaide and coach back here.
Was it a tough one for you? Because I reckon Bendigo had their best season since 2015, so you had a hell of a year to walk away and go, we're close to winning it. We're
that's
deep into the finals. So. Yeah,
exactly. It was a great season, and then Annalie Maley, who was one of my recruits, was league MVP. So we really put together a good roster, but ultimately it was just kind of I wanted to be back home.
All right, so you came home. Now you coach the Central men in the NBL 1. How are you finding coming back to a club that needs a rebuild?
Yeah, it's definitely a rebuild, and I think probably having come back from Bendigo and coming into it late, so now we're kind of sorting through how I want them to play and how we want to play. So, we're building that, and we've got a lot of young ones that are coming through the system as well.
So 36 years in the job, mate. What's been the biggest change you've seen in the last couple of years in the game? Speed of the game?
Speed, I think a lot more individual, like one-on-one type play. Obviously we want to have offences and things like that, but a lot of people developing their individual skills. We've started up a Lions Academy, and you ask the kids, who do they want to be like or shoot like. It's all Steph Curry, it's NBA and things they watch on TV. So, it's probably the individual skills really, really improved as well.
36 years is a long time. You must have some great memories. Do you have a favourite? Something that really just stands out? Bang, here it is.
Yeah, I was wondering whether that was going to be asked. I'm like, probably Probably a couple. So 2016, I was assistant coach with the Australian under-17 women, who I'm now head coach of, and we won the World Championship, and that was the first time in 25 years. And we beat USA, who hadn't lost a game in that whole in the whole scheme of things for the
That's
last.
a highlight.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. And then getting invited to the NBA Utah Jazz Summer League. So I spent a season, well, not a season, but the Summer League there a couple of years ago, and that was all men, and I think I was the only female there. I went to a coaching clinic and there was 300 people there, and I was the only female there.
And how do you find that? I'd love to know, because it's very much in most sports, it's quite male dominated within a coaching perspective.
Yeah.
How do you find, I guess, balancing out all that masculine energy?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just try to be me, and I ask a lot of questions, and I guess I'm forthright in certain ways of just, when I coach. But I just, sometimes you feel uncomfortable, and other times you just think, well, it's been that way for a long time. I'd love to see more females in the male space. It's going to take time. It probably hasn't changed in the last 20 years since
it's changed, actually.
No.
Hey, you mentioned your involvement with the women's team. There's been a lot of discussion in the last couple of weeks about Liz Cambange and what's been made of that. Do you have a view from a distance on any thoughts on that?
I've heard a lot of things, and I think ultimately the Australian Opals want to represent the best that we can, and if she doesn't want to represent Australia, then we've got a lot of good players and a lot of good coaches. So, we stay with the people that want to represent in the right way and fully support that. Yeah,
I obviously know Sandra Bondella, having coached her and spent a lot of time with her. I know you've been around her. You can see that would be a massive part of how she would want her team to be. You're all in. And we're all proud, and we don't come outside of that group. So Liz is as brilliant as she is, she's kind of gone off on her own path. A little bit like you're talking about the players. They want to be the individual player. Yeah. Well, you need to play golf or tennis. It's not going to fit in our sport or in any of the team sports. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Yeah. Can they replace her? I mean, she's unique. She's a...
Well, actually, you see Lauren Jackson's making a comeback at 40, and she's currently playing in the NBL 1. You never know.
I don't think Loz is all that keen to go that road, but you're right, you never know. Yeah. Is there a chance for you to go back to the NBL?
Hopefully. I am staying here in the for the next year or so anyway. And obviously CJ Bruton's coaching here. So when I came back from Bendigo, basically I went out the next day and went to their trainings for the last few weeks of the season. So I did spend some time with him in the last couple of months anyway. So we'll see if he expands his stuff.
What was wrong with the Sixers this year?
I always think it's hard if you come in as a coach and the team's already selected for you.
I think it's impossible.
Well, that's probably very true. Yeah, exactly. So I think if CJ gets his opportunity to select his team, then it's night and day, as you know, to coach that group of people.
Yeah, well, I hope he has great success. Hope you're a part of it, Tracy. I know you're a busy woman. Appreciate your time and stay with it. Another 36 years. I won't be here to interview you, but Britt might be able to do that. So it's amazing that you can maintain that energy level. Stay with us. Still plenty to come.